We come also to the music that is called the blues. Now, in a very technical sense, no slave ever sang the blues. He may have had the blues, but he never sang the blues. The blues, and in fact, if we look at the early lyrics of the blues, much of the blues dealt with topics like movement. I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to move on out. I'm ready to, get away from here. Something a slave obviously couldn't sing about. He may have wanted to go, but he wasn't singing about it in those days. But after emancipation, they began to sing about, it's time for me to go. Remember that the original blues was the music of poor, black, southern, agrarian people. That's who this music spoke to. Some of us maybe today have a hard time with the blues. Well, look at the culture it came out of. Who was that? Somebody had a blues song about, what was it, Mercedes-Benz blues or something like that? What was that? So, yeah, well, basically that's what I'm saying is that it's a different community. A whole different community. Let me play something else for you, too. And listen to what they're saying here. This is the great Robert Johnson.
I got raining on my mind.
So it's a song called Ramblin' Blues. Robert Johnson has been said to be one of the most important musicians to come out of the Delta. So many of today's rock musicians have recorded his songs and been influenced by Robert Johnson's singing and playing. And this is a song that's been recorded by a number of them. And he didn't really record that much, but his songs, in many cases, they talk about him going somewhere. I gotta go. I can't stay here. It's time to travel. Blues has also been called by a number of people a vaccine. Some of us think, that blues, that's that old sad music. Well, no, blues is not supposed to make you sad. Blues is supposed to make you feel better. It's like a vaccine is not supposed to make you sick. Right? You don't take a vaccine because you want to get sick. You take a vaccine because you don't want to get sick. And that's what they say about the blues. You take a little bit of that and it makes you feel better too. The woman I love, she makes me feel so sad. That woman I love, she makes me feel so sad. But when I start loving on her sister, I feel awfully damn glad. Right? Now, is that sad? Does he sound like he said? But look at it again, too. In that song, there are two lines that present the problem. Two lines that present the problem. What is the problem? The problem was that the woman he loves makes him feel sad. But in that third line, he came up with a solution. Oh, I'm going to go love a sister. So often, that's what the blues does. It presents a problem in the first two lines and then offers you a solution. Sometimes it may not be a solution that agrees with our moral code, but there's a solution being presented there too. When we talk about the roots of jazz, in many cases, we go down to New Orleans and talk about the brass bands that existed in New Orleans. And of course, when we think of brass bands in New Orleans, we think of parades and the people marching in those parades. Often, the parades in New Orleans were sponsored by fraternal organizations called social and pleasure clubs. They would hire a band for the parade, and they would march along with them. Those two formed what was called the first line. The people who marched along with the parade were called second liners. They were the second line. They were the people who not only just marched. I've seen parades in New Jersey, and you may get a few people marching along with the parade, but that's not what they do in New Orleans. They may be dancing on tops of cars, dancing on the rooftop. They may dance with the telephone pole. They may dance with the no parking signs. They may be doing all kinds of things out there. And some scholars have said, look here, this was a time when they felt a kind of freedom that they didn't feel any other time, when they got away from all those structures and rules, and they said, man, this is our day. You know, so when those parades went out, the people who were participating in the parades, the parts of the social club and the bands, they all wore their best clothing. They went out looking very good, and they got pride and dignity from taking part in those parades. They've talked about it many times, how much they felt a sense of pride when they could come walking through their community. You know, they were probably strutting through their community on those parades. And it brought them a sense of pride and a sense of dignity. So these brass bands were very important. One of the governors, in fact, of New Orleans told them to do that. Said, yeah, go out and have parades as often as you can, because they bring respect and dignity to you. So you should do that frequently there too. Everybody okay? Yeah. I can't even see my timepiece without my glasses on. So. Okay, thank you. Now, I mentioned John Coltrane's name a little while ago. John Coltrane felt that jazz has the power to change the thought patterns of the listeners. He felt that it was his duty to make himself the best person he could be, and then that it was his duty as a musician. And not only his duty, he felt that the musician's job in general was to be able to create a vision of a better earth, a better world around him with his music. So he's saying that the musician's job is not just to play something that just makes us want to, shake something. He said that the musician's job is to give us a better vision of life. That's something, right? He said that all could be transmitted through the horn, through his playing, too. And Art Blakey, of Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, said something else that was very interesting. He said that jazz washes away the dust of life. Washes away the dust of life. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff hanging on. Sometimes you need some dust washed away. What did we start off by saying Taj Mahal said about the sanity? It's the same statement to me, that we got to wash away the dust. Oh man, blow that horn. We're moving, and we'll talk about something else. Since 1950, the music business has been trying to find a way to market rhythm and blues to a white audience. This has been a goal they've had since about 1950. They've changed writers to write in a way that they thought would attract a white audience. They've changed production techniques to help appeal to a white audience. They were trying to use an industry term. They were trying to achieve what they call crossover. Crossover in the industry term means, as an industry term, means that when you go from a smaller audience to a larger audience. So they've been trying since the 1950s to achieve crossover in especially the popular music market. And so in one sense, that also limited the kinds of things that, the topics that we were able to deal with in rhythm and blues songs. You weren't going to come up with any songs that had any strong political messages in early rhythm and blues. They didn't feel that was going to be the way to appeal to a white audience. Here's a song that was an exception to that. This is from 1956.
When I was born into this world, this is what happened to me. I was never called a man, and now around 53, I wonder when. I wonder when will I get to be called a man and try to wait like it.
I don't think there's anything I can do about that.
When Uncle Sam called me, I knew I'd be called a railroad.
It's not going to go much closer.
And I got in the army that just called me soldier boy. I wonder when.
Yeah, we had some problems with the setup we were trying to use, and we're sort of improvising.
I wonder when will I get to be called a man. You have to wait like it 93. When
That's Big Bill Brunzie from 1956. He was one of the early people to move to Chicago and be a part of the Chicago blues scene. I'm having problems with the microphone. But that was a rare song that had a kind of a message. I wonder when will I be called a man? Everybody wants to call me boy. When will I be called a man? When we think about even Motown Records, what was the motto of Motown Records? The sound of young America. They weren't trying to reach to a black audience. They wanted to be the sound of young America. And this was very different now, because before that, the music made by African Americans, they even called it, up until about 1949, music that was marketed to African Americans was called race music. And those records were called race records. So this was a change. Now Barry Gordy's saying, no, I'm trying to market to everybody. This is the sound of young America. This is not the sound of black America. But still, there was difficulty in coming up with message songs. Even Barry Gordy was reluctant to deal with message songs. He didn't want to deal with songs with messages again, because he thought that might offend some of his white listeners. Well, we know what brought a change to that. Why he changed and what helped him to change his mind. The guy came to him and said, look, I want to record a song and I want to record this album. And Barry said, no, nobody's going to buy that, man. But he reluctantly agreed to let Marvin Gaye put out this one.
There's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way.
the people proved him wrong, right? Now, also something happened during the 70s. We get a new kind of music that came along that they began to call funk. Yeah. And funk did all right for a while, but then something happened in the 70s that really caused a change. You know, they changed up radio. There used to be formats on the radio called black radio. All of a sudden it disappeared. Now we have urban contemporary. And what did urban contemporary do? Put a lot of black radio announcers out of work. A lot of black program directors couldn't get a job anymore because the station was now urban contemporary. And a lot of music that used to be able to be played on black radio couldn't get played on urban contemporary. Say it loud. That was a song that cost James Brown radio airplay and ticket sales. The white community stopped buying his records, and they stopped going out to hear him at concerts. And as I said, the whole format of radio changed, and we lost the whole format behind that too. Some of you know Bernice Johnson Reagan from her work at with Sweet Honey in the Rock and her work at the Smithsonian. Well, I heard her speak. I think this was on one of the programs that Bill Moyers did. And she talked about a gathering, a mass gathering during the Civil Rights days. And she said, you know, sometimes they would have this gathering and all of a sudden some town official would come walking into the meeting. You know, a police chief or somebody like that. And she said everybody would sort of freeze up because they didn't know what that meant when this town official walked in. They didn't know if their life was in danger, if a loved one's life was in danger, if their home was in danger. So it sort of spread a feeling of uneasiness over the crowd. And she said something else that was very interesting. She said, somebody, not necessarily the person who was standing up front, but somebody out in the crowd would just start singing a song. And she said when they would sing that song, it would just change things up. The whole vibes would change up when they started singing the song.
Ain't gonna let nobody know it. Turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody know it. Turn me round, keep on walking, keep on talking, marching like a freedom day. Ain't gonna let segregation know it. Turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let segregation know it. Turn me round, keep on walking, yeah, keep on talking, yeah, marching at your freedom day. Ain't gonna let no.
Now, in many ways, in the black community, of course, there has been a problem with what we could call the socializing institutions. Families, church, and school, in many ways, have lost their influence. And so in many urban areas, the streets have become a socializing institution. That's where many of our young learn their lessons. Instead of getting them from those things I just mentioned, they're getting them from out on the streets. And of course, those folks who were called rappers in many cases, that's where they got their music from. Remember, we talked about what community that blues folks came from. Well, rappers come from urban areas. They're mostly young, and they're mostly poor and black, or they were in the early days of rap. Ice-T compared rap to CNN. Think about that. He said that's like CNN to us. So they're getting news from that, which says something that we should think about. It means that there's a whole segment of society out there who is speaking and saying something. Whether we agree with how they're saying or even what they're saying, we need to listen to what they're saying and write down, because they're voicing the feelings of a whole segment of the population. So what are these young people saying? That's what we should be saying. I don't like what they're saying, but what are they saying? We've got to get through that language and make sure we hear what they're saying, because they may have a message that we need to hear. And so that's what that rap does. Here's the last selection we'll play for you.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Straight out of Compton, it's the crazy brother named Ice Cube. From the stupid dope gang with an attitude. When I'm caught off, I got a sword off. Kick knowledge and bodies all hauled off. You too, boy, if you get with me, the police are gonna have to come and get me.
Anybody know who that is? NWA, straight out of Compton. That's who that is. So they had a message that has, in some cases, caused a kind of middle-class backlash. But what I'm saying is we at least need to listen and find out what they're saying. Somebody needs to sort of analyze the things that they're saying and find out, well, if we think they're, quote, angry young black men, well, why are they angry young black men? Let me leave you with one other thought, and it's pretty similar to the one I opened up with. It's a quote from a writer by the name of James H. Cone. He said, "Black music, then, is not an artistic creation for its own sake. Rather, it tells about the feelings and thinkings of African people and the kinds of mental adjustments they've had to make in order to survive in an alien land." Thank you very much.
You gonna come up and try to do the question?
I just want to see if anyone has some questions. I'd be happy to answer questions for you.
A lot of people really miss the great evenings we used to have with you on the radio.
So do I.
But it's a mystery as to whether that was simply a management programming decision or in part or entirely because you wanted to cut back the hours.
No, I didn't want to cut back the hours. No.
Well, then where we sign up, we gotta get some.
Thank you. I was just saying that was not my desire to cut back my hours. I still enjoy being on the radio, and I certainly wish I was on the radio more hours.
Well, of course, I associate you with jazz, and I don't think you said very much about jazz unless I...
Well, I talked about John Coltrane.
I just wanted to say a little bit of how that fits or doesn't fit.
Well, I did talk about John Coltrane and Art Blakey. The question was, she said I didn't say much about jazz, and I was saying I did talk about Coltrane and Blakey and how they said that the music provided a kind of solace, a kind of a source of better visions, better vision for life for the people. I did have some other music that I picked out to play that because I tend to be long-winded, I ended up skipping too. So.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
My sense is that the jazz audience today is fairly white, and I'm wondering, in the past, was that untrue or how did that change?
I think that you've always, she said that she thought that the jazz audience today was fairly white, and she wondered whether it was the same in the past. I think that there was a time, well, actually, I think if you look at African American music from the earliest days to now, you can almost always see two streams. You see a stream that runs on one level, and that level is music that's being made by black people, pretty much for black people. And white people don't even hear that music in many cases. But then at some point, what happens is that music sort of veers up towards that other line, and that's when the music gets to a commercial point. And what seems to happen in the black community, once it veers up there, the black folks get tired of it. They want to go hear something else. But you'll see that. I mean, you can trace all kinds of different music, and you can see these two streams, and all of a sudden it'll veer up, and then you won't find as many black folks listening to the music. Same thing is said with the blues. We said it came out of a certain community, and now we don't see very many black blues players. That's because it hit the commercial market and sort of veered away from its original community.
Larry?
Yes. Very tough. Good.
You had spoken about the last one you played was the NWA.
Right.
And how we have to listen to what folks are playing.
Right.
NWA, that song came out in 1996.
Right.
So that's already almost 20 years, and some folks...
Some of us still haven't heard it.
Yeah, still haven't heard it. Where do you see our music going?
Well, I don't know if I could really predict where it's going, but I think that just as like, who could have predicted that rap music was going to come up? I think that we'll find that they'll come up with some other way to be creative and to invent some other kinds of music. There probably some music that'll be some sort of derivative or branch off of rap that goes in a different direction. But that's not one I could predict. They're telling me one more question. Yes.
Just more or less a comment. I'm Texas, Louisiana, so I know about what happens down in New Orleans. When I was growing up, in addition to the band, and you had the people coming, it more or less was the spiritual side too, particularly at the funerals. Mm-hmm. So at the funerals, you had musicians playing, and they would wave like this. Right. What it is they said they're going to march you up to heaven. In other words, they were trying to express your uniqueness, that you were black, that you were full of music, but also the fact that on the spiritual side, you want to march up to heaven. You're trying to tell the people that particular deceased person, you're going to sing you up and march you up to heaven. In my family, we still do it.
Oh, really?
They've been written by you to say that, yep, I want to be in parasol.
Great. There have been two problems, however, with the parades and the funerals. One is that the city charges so much for permits and police and all of those kinds of things that it's made it more difficult for them to hold parades. And the other is because of the shortage of burial spots in New Orleans. You can't bury someone in the ground in New Orleans. When they used to do that, they used to have problems with floods. Now you can imagine what happened with some of those bodies. So they have to go outside of New Orleans, and that also creates a kind of problem. What they would do is is march for a certain distance before now or this time, and then they would do what they call cutting the body loose, where the band and all the people who were participating in the procession would then leave, and the body would continue on in a car to where it was going to be buried. But those are some of the problems that have arisen with both parades and funerals in New Orleans. Thank you very much.
One comment that I always receive from visitors, guests, and even board members alike who visit our historic sites or attend our programs is that they always walk away learning something new. Well, I don't know about you, but I certainly learned something new tonight from Eric Jackson. Thank you so very, very much. I want to thank all of you for coming out to the museum this evening, and I hope you enjoyed this program as much as I did. The museum is able to deliver programs like this because of the ongoing support of our members and friends. Please consider becoming a member today and support this history and become a part of this museum. Our membership table is right outside along with the punch and cookies. And our Freedom Rising exhibit is open tonight next door in the A.B.L. Smith School, so I encourage you to stay, mingle, enjoy good company, old and new friends, and meet the board and staff and members to learn more. Remember to tweet, email, blog, journal, Facebook, LinkedIn, and send snail mail about what happened here tonight. Tell the people in your life, especially the children, about these amazing historic sites and the people, events, and stories, and of course, Eric Jackson's lecture and presentation. It's an empowering American history. Thank you so very much.